Like and subscribe right now, or else this will be in your bed tonight. r/ask Reddit by Planet Reddit. What was your first encounter with utter bullshit during your childhood? My mom finding a cigarette in the backyard, accusing me of having stolen a friend's mom's cigarettes to secretly smoke there and grounding me for it despite me not having done any such thing. I was like 9 at the time. My mom had cigarettes and cash constantly come up missing. I took the blame for all of it, until they found out our ferret had a secret nest in the lining of the couch and her favorite raiding place was mom's purse. That's like an episode of Community. How did you guys make up? I got no apology or recognition that my parents were in the wrong. Grew up, and now I'm an adult in treatment for PTSD from repeated childhood trauma and neglect. On the plus side, both my parents got help for their issues and are way easier to have a relationship with now. Edit. A word. When I was in 3rd grade I got suspended for being beat up on the playground. They had a zero tolerance for violence policy. Also I never took a swing. Just punished for being bullied. Same thing in 6th grade. That's how I understood that I might as well fight back. I hear you. I got in trouble, got suspended, and the same kid started another fight with me the day we came back. Boom. Suspended again. That genuinely helped me understand that life is not fair. We are not trying to make it fair, and you need to protect yourself at a really young age. When the same thing happened in junior high school I was more ready. And then you get suspended and your parents beat you up. When our teacher would yell at us if we asked to go to the bathroom at the beginning of class because we should have gone earlier, and then yell at us if we asked to go in the middle of class because we were interrupting, and then yell at us if we wanted to go at the end because we were trying to ditch since the class was almost over. So when can we go? Between classes. But you dock points if we're late. Shut up. My best friend had multiple bladder infections as a kid because she was so terrified of confrontation and the teacher yelling at her that she never relieved her tiny child bladder the entire time she was at school. I had bladder issues as a kid and wet myself in 1st grade one time when my teacher refused to let me go. Ever after, I had blanket permission from my mom to go when needed as long as I didn't make a scene and whoever had a problem could take it up with her. My mom. You don't lie to others. Also my mom, getting caught red-handed while telling a lie and I had to call her out on it. Any place where children under 11 eat free. Okay son you're 10 got it. But mom I'm 12. You're 10 goddammit. Considering that kids can't wait to grow up, this might be the worst thing for them to lie about. The good old times where you were not 12 years old but 12 years and 4 months. And it made a difference. Though my parents just explained to me why they wanted to do that and at that age you can understand it. Not like it will hurt anyone. Who threw that paper plane at the teacher? No one is confessing? Alright then. Everyone is punished. Exactly the same happened in my school but the school's staff interrogated all my class trying to find the culprit, managing to narrow down to 4 or 5 people. They all were suspended, formally apologized and made a presentation about respect. Right cause that's not a waste of time and recourses. Screw education. Someone threw a paper airplane. My 1st grade teacher gave my table detention because we were the last people she asked about a missing name on an abandonment. The first time I was followed by a couple of guys in a car. I was 12. I ran to the nearest house for help. And I asked them if we should call the police. And they said no. Looking back, I think they were wrong. Who in their right mind would deny a 12-year-old calling the police? You were a smart child. A selfish person who doesn't want to be inconvenienced to help someone. I mean, I would help but I was just about to start cooking dinner. Oh, and could you try to make it a few more blocks down the street before you get kidnapped? I have plans later this evening and it would be a real hassle if the street was blocked off by investigators or something. I was bullied a lot in elementary school. To be fair, I was a pretty easy target for the bullying. r/roast me would have a meltdown not knowing where to start. So every day at lunch and recess I would get chased and harassed by 4 other boys. One day the teacher, being indignant to keep order on the playground, grabbed me and told me to quit running. But of course, as soon as I did the 4 boys began pushing and taunting me. So I started running again. Next thing I know the teacher grabs me by the arm and starts to paddle me. Teachers could do that back then. She missed my behind and caught me in the back again. So I cussed at her. She sent me to the principal's office. And when I told him what had happened, he just shook his head. Then had me stand up to take 3 licks from his paddle. 5th grade is when I learned the world was utter bullshit. Why weren't you allowed to run on the playground? My school did the same thing. People would fall over and hurt themselves or run into the playsets. Kids running while playing and occasionally tripping themselves? Oh, no. Smacking kids in the behind with a paddle and missing? Sounds good to me. My mom would ask my opinion on things constantly. I would say it didn't matter to me, or whatever she thought was best, but she would force the issue until I finally answered. Then she would scream at me about how I didn't understand, or I was an idiot, or I never thought of her needs. I still panic a little when people ask for my opinion on something. I smiled at the first half because I do think parents should encourage children to share their opinions. Then I got to the second half. What a miserable thing to do to a child. Yep, I get that. My dad never tolerated differing opinions either. He'd ask, but the only good answer was to tell him what he wanted to hear. I didn't always know what that was, so I'd freeze up and hope the question was rhetorical. Dad tax. I have done chores for you all week. I have received payment from you in the form of allowance for doing said chores. I have used that allowance to buy candy per your request, because if you want something you pay for it yourself. And now you come in the room yelling dad tax and steal half of it. That is some bullshit. Funniest thing my friend's dad would say is we're coming into the house with beer. Dad, is that a 30 rack? Us. Yep, Dad. Well, it's a 29 rack now. Communist detected on American soil. Lethal force engaged. Nah, he's raw capitalist parenting. His care was alone and free beer is the payment. Getting called out for throwing a snowball against a wall. Had to write down the whole school rules and there was not a single word about snow or throwing stuff. Edit. 500 upvotes. This will be most famous I will ever get. Thank you guys so much. Greetings from German man living in Austria now. Had to do the same thing, except I was only touching the snow. I did not, nor did I even have the intention of forming a snowball. Teacher be like, "Ho, you touching the snow? Instead of running away, you came just to the snow? I can't piss in it without getting closer." Was asked to watch the rectory on Friday night so the priests could have a night off. I was 12 years old. My job basically was to accept food that was brought by parishioners for the priests and find a place for it in their jammed packed double glass door refrigerator that was as wide as 2 refrigerators. There were 4 priests at our tiny parish. I accepted fully cooked roasts, hams, casseroles and cakes. I was told not to eat anything. A few months later I was made to clean the convent with a couple of the nuns as a punishment for talking too much in class. There were 23 nuns who lived on site and tagged school. Their kitchen had a tiny refrigerator, and when it was lunchtime they opened a cupboard of expired canned goods. We had very old tomato soup for lunch with stale bread and milk made from powder. I asked them if they knew about the food over at the rectory and they said number. Did they ever get any of the food from the rectory? Not that I was aware of. There was so much food at the rectory I wondered HW they could eat it all. The nuns ate donated food and wore donated clothes. No habits. When they sat us 7th grade girls down to discuss possibly becoming a nun, I said absolutely no way. Bro, that's horrible. When I was in kindergarten we had to that thing where you had a grid of boxes, and in each box was a word. You would have to cut out each box individually, then arrange the words in some order. After a few months of cutting out each box like we had been shown, I figured that cutting out the rows and putting them on top of each other so the boxes lined up, and cutting them out like that, would take a lot less time. My teacher saw me do this. I had to stay in at recess to cut them out the right way. I had a similar thing. In 1st or 2nd grade, we were making pop-up Mother's Day cards or something, where you had to trace hearts with a pencil on cardstock, cut it out, fold it, whatever, you get the gist. When I turned mine in, I was the 3rd or 4th kid in a row that put the hearts with the pencil marks facing forward instead of hiding them by turning them around. She lost it on me, telling me I was horrible at following instructions. Couldn't believe anyone was so oblivious not to see the stencil tracing was the wrong way, etc. Tossed the card right in the trash. and gave me my first ever 0, and as a goody two shoes who idolized my teachers, also my first ever anxiety attack. Fortunately, other incidents with this teacher taught me I got in less trouble for not doing homework at all, rather than getting it done and risk making mistakes. Set me up for success real good later on. Why are the people who teach children so often control freaks? If you were a control freak, where would you find your victims? Learning that you can start a sentence with and, despite, me being fed that information since year 3. But can you start a sentence with because but my teachers would lose their mind if we did? Because of how much teachers critiqued my writing, I have vowed to never write unless necessary. Yes, but there must be a comma somewhere after the first clause, I think. For example, because Tuvboxes, Abdefk. First grade. Teacher tells the class to complete the worksheet and there is to be no talking. We all start on the worksheet, and a boy behind me starts talking to me about something. I turn and tell him to stop talking. Teacher called me out and made me go to the front and turn my card from green to yellow. Red is the next warning and means you're going to the principal's office. I was so distraught. I'd never gotten in trouble before. I stood under the slide the entire recess crying and then cried off and on the whole rest of the day silently. I just knew my parents were going to be so disappointed and would of course know before I got home. When I got home and they didn't know I'd had to turn my card, I told them. They asked me why I was talking and I told them the story. Mum said, well, he shouldn't have been talking but let the teacher deal with him. You shouldn't. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. I was aghast. What? It isn't? I can still go back to school? It won't be on my permanent record? My life isn't over and I won't be labeled a bad kid forever? I felt like I got my second chance at life. Sounds like you got set up in a sting operation. It wouldn't have held up in court. Eating dog food because my mother used the child support for cigarettes. Hope your situation is better now. Fortunately I have enough money now to afford therapy, lol. And food, I hope. Not the first but one that sticks out strongly in my mind. Me laying in a hospital bed after an overdose when I was 13. And my mother and father were standing on opposite sides of the bed screaming and yelling at each other over me. I recall making eye contact with a nurse for a notable length of time. I am so sorry that happened to you. I hope you're in a better place in your life now. Not the exact same experience but I can empathize. Hope you are doing better now. 3. Being told I could not use the restroom in class. I was not a cut up and really had to go. It was dehumanizing. I had this issue with teachers several times in my childhood. I eventually learned to just get up and leave without asking. Most of the time they didn't notice or didn't want to interrupt their lecture to protest. Anytime that they had a problem with it, I simply threatened to pee on the floor right there in front of them. Usually got them to shut up, and then I'd leave. What a power move. When someone tells you what you can do with your body, it is necessary to make this kind of power move. Dehumanizing children because it makes handling all of them easier is lazy bullshit. Join our community Discord, link in description. In preschool, my mom gave me a book of math problems and said if I got them all done by the end of the day, I'd get a reward. I did the shit out of those math problems. My reward was a hug. I felt like Patrick from the Valentine's episode of SpongeBob. Treachery. Aren't hugs supposed to be given anyway? Or is that the point? In first grade, getting my yellow card flipped to red while I was in the bathroom. The teacher flipped everyone in the class one card while I was away because I guess she had it with us. Fuck you, Ms. Smith. Once the teacher told a girl to flip her card, and when the teacher left the room briefly, she said I wish Ms. Teacher had a card I'd flip hers too. And we all lost it. We'd never heard such disrespect. Naturally, the entire class snitched on her. Little girl sounds gangsta. If I were the teacher, I'd secretly admire her. Ugh. I posted a first grade card flip fiasco as well. It was traumatizing. I still remember it well. Realizing how people reproduce. Wait, so the stork doesn't bring babies in? This was a very traumatic moment for me as a child. I remember that. Okay, so is there a tube you connect or something? My mom gave birth to my half-brother when I was about 3. I remember being home with her right after she came from the hospital when 3-year-old me asked mom, "Do we have to keep him?" And that's when I realized life sure as shit ain't all about you. At least I got that lesson real early. That's a pretty common reaction from children, because they are used to be the only one getting the attention. So it's normal. How do we teach fully grown adults that? An emotional and verbally abusive sister. Uck off. Sarah. Ucking Sarah. Uck you Sarah. r/uck Definitely not the first, but it's an early one that I really remembered. Dad bought a full EU pallet of behind-orted M3, M4, M6 screws, nuts and washers directly from a factory, all unsorted because apparently that was marginally cheaper than buying it sorted in boxes like a normal person. Me and my brother were forced to sort all of it properly in Tupperware. I was like 4-5. That was ucking bullshit. Also, guess who did jack ucking shit in helping sort it? Maybe there's more to this story. I'm a crew foreman and one of my helpers is autistic. He's a great guy but his skills are limited and the hyper-focus can be disruptive to workflow. When I need him out of my way, but I want him to feel useful, I have him sort screws. Oh trust me, I know perfectly well who's on the autistic spectrum in this story. You and your dad left your brother to sort by himself. Source: I'm sibling. My mom informs everyone dinner is ready by yelling from the bottom of the stairs and expects me to hear her despite my room being on the other side of the house, my door being closed, and my TV being on. Also my mom, don't yell from the top of the stairs. You need to ask me in person or else I can't hear you. I'm not made of ears you know. I feel you. Exact same thing. If I have headphones on playing a video game, she'll yell at me from upstairs, my room's downstairs. And then if I think I heard something, I'd yell what? Or yes, not disrespectfully, just to check if somebody actually called my name BC again. I have headphones on, and she would not respond. I would then resume what I was doing, and get in trouble for doing so. Nowadays she will literally scream like she is dying. Not even exaggerating. I would then come running because I would think that she is seriously hurt. Then it would turn out to be something like I need you to put your dishes in the dishwasher. So freaking frustrating. I'm answering for my 1.5-year-old. Mom decided she was done breastfeeding. The child has made it very clear how utter bullshit this is to her. Her glare is quite telling. How dare you? My cousins often stole money and broke things and didn't say anything so they wouldn't get in trouble. I remember one particular time my aunt kept asking me if I broke it. I don't even remember what it was. Some kind of piece in container. Over and over even though I always told the adults if I broke something or made a mistake. I still got blamed and I think it's just because she just wanted it to be my fault for once instead of my cousins. Edit. I remembered another one. So when I was little back in my home country I used to save up dollars. Once in a while someone would give me a dollar bill and I'd stash it away. I had $6 saved over my 10 years and when I was leaving with my stepdad to come to the US my aunt decided that I had to give up those dollars because my cousin did some stupid shit and they had to bail him out again so they needed all the money they could get. She also pressured me to give up my gold earrings and a ring I had presents I got a while back. Because again, since I was going to the US I didn't need them. I was forced to give up even the little favorite toys I had when I left but I stuck to it and kept my little ring and necklace. And got a lecture and shamed for it. We're not rich in the US. BTW. I work my behind off and so do my parents and we all always have. My cousins just never saved anything and always did stupid shit and still haven't changed. Only one is slightly better because he got lucky with a wife who's smart. Person tells me that stealing is bad. Person proceeds to dig up my piggy bank. Also, happy cake day OP. Cupcake. Back in elementary school I was somewhat misbehaved. And let me tell you that annoying a bunch of power tripping elementary school administrators will get you a lot of bullshit. I was sent to the principal's office for knocking over a cone during gym class. I was sent to the guidance counselor basically used the same way as the principal's office. For tearing a piece of paper. Not me specific. But there were lists posted on the wall of the school dictating which recess games kids in each grade could play. Octopus tag, for example, might only be allowed in 2nd and 3rd grade. If you wanted to play a game that was not on the list, you were required to talk to the principal. How one would arrange such a meeting was never really clear. I was scolded for playing pretend Star Wars during recess because it encouraged violence. I was asked if I needed a chew toy to help me concentrate. I wasn't focusing on class walk because I found it too easy. 4th, 5th, and 6th graders were not allowed on the old playground structure because we were too old. You are never too old for slides and monkey bars and tubes you could crawl trough. Going through my parents' cabinets for no reason and finding receipts from things I recently got from Santa on Christmas. I saved my money to buy a pair of X-ray specs from the back of a comic book. They didn't work for shit. You didn't get to see OIES, that's criminal taking advantage of children. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, we took a field trip to the Field Museum here in Chicago. During our lunch break, I wandered off to the gift shop to see what they had. I had a huge crush on this girl named Victoria in my class, and I saw this ladybug ring for a couple of dollars. I knew she liked ladybugs and I had money my parents gave me to buy something at the shop. So I decided to buy the ring and give it to her. I was really nervous and kept waiting for the right time to do it. I eventually decided to just go for it and walked up to her near the end of the trip. She was with some of her friends, which made me more nervous, but I found the courage to do it. She looked at the ring and laughed. Her friends joined her and she then tossed the ring in the trash. I was completely devastated and tried hard to hold back my tears. Even though I'm over it now, that completely upped my confidence with girls for a long time. Looking back, I may have embarrassed her too, giving it to her in front of her friends, which is why she reacted that way. But even still, it was pretty bullshit for her to just toss it in the trash in front of me like that. Ah man, she wanted to act tough hard to get in front of her friends. Ah well, at least you understand why she did what she did, so hopefully you don't feel like it was your fault because you weren't attractive enough. I went to a private school where I was bullied a lot. No one in admin did much when my friends and I reported it. Occasionally a lecture from the AP for the entire class with no specifics or calling out. In 5th or 6th grade, one of my bullies kept pinching my behind in line for pay. Didn't read into that at the time, until I finally turned around and screamed at him to knock it the fuck off. I got detention and was forced to apologize. Slightly similar thing happened. During pay, we were playing handball, a sport where you specifically don't touch your opponents. By the way, I get ready to score a goal while a douchebag on the other team, kinda passive douchebag by the way, not a bully or something, rarely spoke or did anything, but he was extra lazy in class, and whenever he did something else it was to annoy everyone, teacher included, on purpose. Ran into me like a pro wrestler, used a spear and obviously shoved me to the ground. I thought the teacher was blind as fuck, so when I got in trouble for confronting him, I did called him an and a stupid aunt. I admit it. The teacher's excuse was, and I quote, "He didn't shove you or whatever. He's just defending a bit aggressively, that's all." Fucking BCH. We were doing the hokey pokey and Julia didn't turn herself all the way around. What's the point in even trying? Trying yourself around is what it's all about. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.